to start with first? I'll start with Roger. So it's a sickness. First, so and it's live. It's hot. All right, you ready? All right. Ooh, my goodness. That is one hot mic. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Culver. I'm on the faculty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in our School of Journalism and Mass Communication. And I, along with these lovely and talented individuals, and two people who couldn't be here, or two universities that aren't represented, were winners of the first round of the Challenge Fund for Innovation in Journalism Education. So let me just start out by telling you that we're going to go really, really quickly today. There's a lot of panelists. We're calling this quite craftily a lightning timeline. So each of us is going to cover one element of how we went from learning about the grant to getting an idea, finding a media partner, and where we are today. So I will introduce people as we go through, but we're not going to be long on introductions or information on each of our projects. What we've instead done is given you a lasting resource for that. If you go to the page for this session on ONA's site, you'll find really detailed information, including contact information for all of us if you'd like to follow up on our specific projects and learn more about where we are, links to our projects online, that sort of thing. So we wanted you to have something that when you get back home, you'll be able to use and make connections with. Okay, so first and foremost, I have to thank the funders of the Challenge Fund. I have to say, in my experience, this was one of the most exciting things that has happened in the 14 years I've been doing this. It was a great incubator for ideas, and I think if you looked at some of the honorable mentions last year, you'd find that there's more and more out there. So I would encourage everyone to think about what ideas you can come up with, because guess what? The next round is coming up later in October. So without further ado, we're going to begin with how this whole thing got started with Roger Gafke from Missouri, who's going to address how did you generate an idea.
I think our task was to use the kind of development template that we do for most projects, and let me give you 3 ways of approaching that. One is, what are you good at already? With a small grant like that, you're not likely to develop a new capability at your place. So what are you good at already? And in our case, with this social media inter-engagement stuff, this is our 5th project in that many years. 3 of them are already continuing in the market, and the 4th one is kind of limping still alive in the market. So that was question number 1. What are you good at already? Second way to devise it, what needs to be done? This is a little bit like bench research at the medical school. Is, gee, I'm trying to invent that new vaccine, but I've got to answer some other questions in the process of doing that. So what needs to be done? And in our case, that is, we've got to do more of helping citizens see their voices and hear their voices in our news reports than we do now. And with social media, we would like to not make that so much of a sideshow or an afterthought, but work it more into the mainstream news report there. So that was our second question, what questions need to be answered. And then the third one is, what can we accomplish toward those questions? And in our case, that was a very small goal here. How can we change our processes inside the newsroom to work that social media stuff more into our reports and get more diverse voices in our news reports from it, so that the measuring sticks for our projects are going to be virtually entirely inside the newsroom. Our process has changed, and since at Missouri our newsroom is our curriculum, we will then be changing the way in which our students experience that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Roger. Now to address how you identify and rope in a media partner is an actual media partner for San Diego State's project, Lori Hearn.
Thank you. Yes, I think one of the first things you need to look at in finding a media partner is if you have already worked with someone in the media professional organization. That's obviously the best place to look. iNewsSource is a small investigative nonprofit. We started out based at the School of Journalism at San Diego State, so the partnership was natural. I had already done some collaboration with one of the journalism professors at San Diego State on another project. So Amy Schmitz-Weiss, who I'm sorry is not here, has been the leader of our What's in the Air project. She conceived it and we helped with the grant. It's an interdisciplinary project, so it basically brings the sciences together with journalism. We felt it was really important to try to cultivate more of this interdisciplinary education in the journalism department. So we have 3 partners. We have the sciences department, we have the journalism department, and we have the newsroom, which is iNewsSource, and we have a partnership with public media. So the way we've conceived this is we will all teach the class together. The sciences and journalism students will work together building air monitors. We'll work with the community in placing these air monitors in certain neighborhoods. And then iNewsSource will work with the students on crunching the data, writing the stories, and actually publishing them on our website. We're also pitching a project to public media where the students will be able to do some stories on radio and television about this project. So it will involve the community to an even greater degree.
Thank you, Lori. David, when you stand, maybe step off to the side a little bit so you're not in the line of sight of the projector, and we don't want to blind you. So David Craig from Oklahoma is going to talk to us about how we assembled the grant application and the key elements of it.
So our project focuses on poverty in Oklahoma City neighborhoods, and truly I can say how did we assemble it? We assembled it very carefully, and I say that because the format of this proposal is in short chunks, really prompted us to think even more than we might have already about every word, each piece of each element, and really how the overall arc of what we were doing came through. Our project has several components, both on the journalism side and the research side, so we were concerned that some of that might get lost and the complexity might overwhelm the narrative of what we were doing. So I think I'd encourage anyone doing one of these proposals to think about what the overall arc is within the proposal. We used one writer, but we consulted across the partnerships, and particularly on the faculty and with our main partner, Oklahoma Watch. And the bottom line is just we really worked it over. The elements that I thought were key, one is a robust research component. These projects have an opportunity to do something that really implements the teaching hospital model, which of course has been talked about a great deal, but there hasn't been much going on yet in really substantive, systematic research. And so I think that what we contribute, that's a key part of it. And then along with that, an experiment and a hypothesis that can actually be evaluated. And we frankly really sweated over that because it's so hard to measure effects. And so I would encourage, again, anybody working on a proposal to reach out to anybody on your faculty who may have methodological expertise, and not just on your faculty, but other areas on campus. And then really express clearly what's innovative journalistically, not just with the technology. And then finally, look for partnerships. You may find within university disciplines, you may find some people in surprising places. Like I didn't know we had a GIS librarian. We had somebody focused in the university with that specialty who was able to help us tremendously in what we're doing. Thanks.
Okay, and now at the request of our crack AV staff, I'm going to ask you to come this way, actually. So Mike Marcotte from New Mexico is going to cover for us how you gain internal support, which is a particularly challenging thing at some places.
Yes, and I had three worries going into writing our proposal for the New Mexico Newsport. Would I get buy-in to begin with? Would we get participation if the project got going? And would I be subject to petty jealousies? And so buy-in, as soon as we started applying for the grant, I started working the communication loop. And frankly, I chatted up as many people as I could, but basically I wrote the proposal and kept looping people in, making them feel included, asking their participation. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And by the time we had the proposal written, we actually had probably 20 people kind of on the roster as bought in and interested. When we got the money, then came the participation part, and I had to go back to my diplomacy and start to talk, okay, we're building a platform that relies upon students to report news, and then we're trying to build partnerships with professional journalists in the community. So participation's a pretty big deal. I didn't want it to be all on me. So the method there was have meetings, personal diplomacy with many faculty members, then a couple of group faculty meetings so they could hear each other speak. And that way, everybody felt like, I could see myself as part of this project. Mike is interested, and let's go for it. Petty jealousy, as it turns out, when we launched, that was just a reflection of my own fear, my own fear of failure, fear of being judged, that sort of thing. So actually, once we launched and people could see, hey, this is real. Wow, we got the money. We're actually doing this. The participation has been great. Not all faculty are in, full bore. Some are full-on partners. Others are sort of like, I'm kind of waiting for my moment. Others are, I don't know, sort of waiting for their moment as well. So a lot of buy-in, a lot of communication, taking the lead, and sort of sparing them the grunt work, and suppress your fears.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And now, Rebecca Blatt from the Cronkite School at ASU. It's April. You get the announcement. You made it. And then, holy heck, what happens next? So after you get the money, what do you do?
Right, and I started work at the Cronkite School in the middle of March. So this was like, congratulations, welcome, here's this big grant, now go figure out what to do. So we started by putting together a multidisciplinary team to lead this project. To a certain extent, that team had already been assembled in putting together the grant proposal, but of course, getting everyone around one table at one time and figuring out how to move forward was something different entirely. So we had a terrific team. This was a collaboration between the News 21 Investigative Reporting Project that's based at the Cronkite School in the summer, the Public Insight Network Bureau, which is a new program at the Cronkite School looking at audience and community engagement. And then we had the research lead for this was Dawn Gilpin, who's an associate professor at the Cronkite School. And so we all got around a table to figure this out, and we basically set a timeline. Ours was time to be produced in advance of the launch of the News 21 project in August. So we knew we had to back time to that to get everything done before that. And then we set some metrics for evaluating success, both on individual tasks that we were going to do between now and then, but then also once the project had kind of run its course in advance of that launch of the News 21 project, how we were going to evaluate success moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My project media partners are in the back of the room, and I'm now wondering if they think I'm a sloth, because that is incredibly organized. Metrics, Andy, metrics. We will turn to metrics. Okay, so Brant Houston from Illinois with the question, what did you do this summer?
On my non-vacation this summer, I worked with a team of programmers and developers to inventory social media in the Champaign-Urbana area. Our project is called Intersections. It is trying to make more visible all the things that go on in social media. Okay, social media in the area. A lot of issues begin and end with social media at the University of Illinois. We have national attention now on things having to do with freedom of expression and the First Amendment. So we wanted to, one, do an inventory of what kind of social media is out there, do an inventory of the tools you could use to find various postings, messages, and so forth, really find the limitations of those tools, and then really concentrate on one over the summer, which is called topic modeling. And that's where an algorithm goes through text and looks at the proximity of words. It goes through a lot of iterations. And the tool we're using is really interesting because it can find the trends, it can find the proximity of the topics, but this tool allows you then to go to the raw feed, the raw Twitter feeds, the raw Facebook post, to look at the actual messages that made up that topic. And so we are discovering all sorts of events going on in the area that no one knows about, issues, clubs, groups. It's just been an amazing learning process. So when we're finally done, we want a portal so it's easy to search for certain social media, but we also want to give people the idea of the topics and trends that they might want to search for or it might be interesting. So that's what I did this summer. Thanks.
Excellent. A busy summer, non-working summer. Again, on the information that we've provided for you on the webpage, any resources like that, what tool is that, we will supply information for you. So now turning to Cindy Royal from Texas State, what new means or methods are you teaching students as part of this project?
Okay, the project has to do with teaching students how to use data visualizations to tell stories about music. And so it's a topic that students are very interested in. And I was already scheduled to teach a programming class in our curriculum first time, and this gave us a perfect opportunity to develop something that had a focal point, something that, you know, we had a real reason to tell stories about a specific topic. So the course is called Coding and Data Skills for Communicators. And so far, what we have been doing is learning JavaScript and jQuery and really investigating the data sources that are available to tell the stories about the music community. So students are applying judgment as well as hard skills. And I'm teaching the course with someone from our computer science program, which is the first time that we've ever done a collaboration like that. And I found the right person. I mean, I can talk to other people about the process of selecting and working with somebody in another department, but we've had a great back and forth in terms of sharing what I would teach and what he would teach and how we would work together. And I think he's getting a lot out of it in terms of the unique approach that we have to data and how it affects storytelling. So the other things that I'm working on with this are having a lot of meetings with people around the Austin and Central Texas community, people from South by Southwest Music, the city of Austin, the state of Texas. There's a lot of music resources, so we want to get students involved with them, and I'm at the very early stages of that. And I'm planning some workshops and some hackathons in the future for students to be involved in. That would be part of this grant. And then sort of an indirect effect of this grant is that it's the very first step in some fairly significant curriculum tweaks that I'll have more to talk about that as this evolves. So that's it.
They're very exciting curriculum, more than tweaks, I would call them. All right, now turning to the project at CUNY and Sandeep Junakar. What are you doing right now? What's happening right now, and what's up next?
Thank you. There's so much going on right now, and in order to tell you what's happening, I have to give you a short description of what the project is, very short. We've teamed up with the Daily News, and we're trying out different ways of crowdsourcing to engage a community that is not connected to the news and might even be distrustful of the news as well. We're working with public housing residents who are overrun by mold in their apartments. And in many cases, or right now, there's a federally mandated court order that is supervising the cleanup, and we're trying to track that through the residents. So in order to describe what we're doing right now, I've broken it down into a couple of categories: what we're doing in the classroom, what we're doing in the field, Bits and Bytes, which is just about technology, and then our partnerships themselves. So first of all, in the classroom, we are working with our students right now so that they can help us set up partnerships in the community. This is a very important thing. So what we've done is they've been brainstorming about how do you reach out to people, how do you explain to them what the project is very quickly, and we've been working on creating a flyer or postcard with them to be able to do that. What is next in the classroom is we've been working with students where they have to come up with tools that may not be used for engagement, but if they can think of a way of doing that. So we are faced with a third of the population living in public housing being elderly. In many cases, the elevators are broken. They can't even leave their apartments. So one student came up with looked at the post office, and there's the service where you can have mass mailings delivered. So we're going to try to implement that next to reach elderly people in their apartments so they can engage with us as well through the phone, through calling in and leaving a message on our Google Voice mail. In the field, we are working with partners that we're collaborating with, really. These are people in the field who are already have a lot of trust with community members. Remember, this is a group that is a little distrustful of journalists. We only seem to show up when there's a shooting or something like that. So we're working with organizations to help us build that trust. And that has taken some work, because one of the organizations, a legal organization, almost put out a letter with all the legal ramifications of the partnership, and we had to talk to them about how we're a news organization, we are not going to be signing this, We have what we bring to the table, and we really need them to help us build trust. And that has worked out in the end. So that's what we're working on there. The next step is in the field to come up with a news story that the Daily News will then publish on their site and in the paper, and that's going to lead to one of the major steps in the crowdsourcing project. The Daily News is willing to put in a tear sheet where people can rip it out, fill out the form, mail it back, or take a picture of it and email it to us, etc. So those are some of the things we're working on in the field. In terms of bits and bytes, this is really important. This is a 15-week course, and students are building all this institutional knowledge, and we're afraid that when they move on to the next course, that they will take that knowledge with them. So we've had to spend some time building a database system where we can take in their sources, take in images. We don't know how we might use that later on, but that's been really important because it is a shifting population. Finally, I do want to say one thing. In terms of what's next, we're really working on engaging with the community and forming partnerships, but it's really going towards working with them to get information that they can then use to make decisions, to form action for the situation they're in. In many ways, this dovetails really well with a new program at CUNY, the social journalism program, where you're creating ties and building relationships with the community. And my dean is here, and I just want to say this is a 15-week course. We do not have it mapped out at all. Every week we're trying to do something new, and you know, we come in with the class plan the day of.
I love risk. Fear is my friend. Okay, so finally, from Florida International University and a former student of mine from your fine School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Ted Gucci, to talk about how you rope in project management, how you handle this many moving parts, and I'm hoping that the teacher can learn from the student because it's something that we're struggling with right now.
I'm still learning every day from you, Katie. Okay, and my dean is also in the room, so I feel some of the pressure too. One of the things that's the hardest for us, I think, and maybe others share this kind of challenge too, is the management of this project. We thought that we identified the best 5 or 6 community partners, and then we moved forward and we found like another 12, right? So now I have we have one of the only public high schools massed at FIU on a college campus in the United States. There's only, just a smidgen, and we have one of them, and they've signed up to work with us, 190 students. So now we have our media partner, we have our donors, we have all of our faculty. Now we have 190 high school students. What am I going to do with them? It is a really tough project, specifically dealing with the budget, because as a journalist, numbers were never really my strong suit, and I think a lot of my students probably feel the same way. So one of the things that we've done is we do weekly meetings, and we hate meetings, right? But we do weekly meetings. They've been getting longer as we get closer to some of our projects, but we invite our community partners in. Each week has a different person who's invited. We also were using our website, eyesontherise.org, which is this fabulous T-shirt.
They have T-shirts, everybody.
Yeah,
They have shirts.
By the way, the T-shirts were warmer in Miami than they are here, so we'll be changing quickly. But this is part of the management structure. We're on October 9th, for instance, we're going to have 120 people down on Miami Beach using sensors to measure water quality during the highest tide of the year, right? Our project focuses on sea level rise in South Florida. So to manage 120 people, most of them high school students, we had to find a way, not just with event passes, but a way to visualize it. And a way to visualize it for visual storytelling for media, because that's an unspoken partner, right? The media who aren't our partners, right? Because we need to get the message out. So the management has been meetings, phone calls, balancing lots of the interest, because it has just exploded. And so I know from everybody here, just to get to the point that we all are at, it takes, using your website as a repository of information, but also open source information. So like our budget is up there, where we spent our money, where all of our money's gone. It's all there. We sent everybody to the website for our mission statement. And it's really using that not just as a platform, but as a place to communicate the inner workings of our organization.
All right, thank you, Ted. Now, I have to give my personal thanks to these panelists because I gave them extra lightning in that lightning timeline, and they all obeyed. I mean, I've never had a group of panelists that stayed that on time. You guys are awesome. So let me transition into some sort of general questions, and we're going to pass the mic back and forth as people want to answer. One of the things that was most challenging in the Challenge Fund grant application for us at Wisconsin, and our project focuses on water quality and supply in Wisconsin and brings together at this point now 8 courses this semester, and it's going well, so we don't know how many more next semester. But one of the most challenging things was that the application asked us to have a hypothesis. This is a live news experiment is what we are all trying to do. And a bunch of academic researchers sat in this room and went, oh, what's our hypothesis? And we at Wisconsin eventually landed on can a common platform, so we've created this site called The Confluence, a common platform and a common topic encourage and stimulate innovation across different kinds of courses. So we have some courses that have been incredibly innovative and some that haven't, that have still remained very linear text-based. And so could those two things in combination stimulate some innovation? What were some of the rest of your hypotheses, and why did you land on that? Jump right up.
In our case, we said that your participation in this harvesting of social media content from the community will increase your confidence in working in that space, increase your confidence of getting diverse content into the news report and so forth, compared to those students in the newsroom who don't have this direct experience.
Let me just add, too, on our What's in Your Air project. The journalism department and the sciences had worked together before on a couple of projects. They had a seminar on covering wildfires where they'd bring students together so the geology students, for example, could see how their knowledge could be used by journalists. Their expertise could be used for the public good, and journalists at the same time were then being educated that even though we don't like numbers and things like that, that really to cover a wildfire you need to understand the science, and where do you go to understand that? So that was kind of the kernel of our project that came together in terms of what's in the air. We thought, how are we going to advance this interdisciplinary workshop where we have journalism students and science students together?
Our hypothesis is that the project on poverty in Oklahoma City will foster awareness and discussion of that issue among stakeholders in the area, and we really did wrestle too with the hypothesis. As I said earlier, also, how do we research this? And just mention a couple of things. We're going to do a network analysis to try to identify the stakeholders who actually are talking about this online, and then we're going to do interviews with those identified stakeholders to talk about how they became aware of the project. There's some other pieces, some content analysis and other things, but that's that's pretty, for us, that's pretty ambitious. Network analysis is something I don't work in, and again, as an example of having to draw on other people. So that's my
Okay, I'm just throwing out a note to my planning partner in the back of the room, Lauren, that network analysis is a fantastic idea, and we have someone who does it, so that's great. So let's do one more with Cindy down here.
So when I started thinking about this, I had a lot of options in my head because we have a lot of potential media partners in the Austin area. But I went back to something that was very much a hobby, an interest of mine. I got into this whole career because I had a music-oriented website, and I had been writing for Texas Music Magazine over the years. And then I have this interest in data and programming. So how could I combine those two things? And I think that was sort of the sweet spot. And then when I came up with that idea of combining those things, it was like, well, can you tell stories about music with data? And what kinds of things have to be in the environment? What kind of a vibrant music culture has to exist so that you can go beyond just entertainment and talk about the economics of music in a community, the history of music in a community. So it really was some brainstorming, maybe some design thinking of very discrete areas in my life and pulling those things together. And it worked out pretty well because, again, it's something that I think students are responding to.
Okay, Sandeep has one burning addition.
Yeah, just one more thing. The interesting thing is that the New York City Public Housing Authority, when they receive a complaint that there's mold in your house, they actually come in, and some people, the people will look at it, the maintenance people, and they'll say, that's not mold, it just needs a new paint job. And so they don't actually track for mold. They just put it down as something else. So our hypothesis is that with good crowdsourcing and boots on the ground, you can collect information and then offer that information back to lead to action or change. And in this case, we want to make sure that the judge overseeing the case actually has solid numbers to work with, that there is mold and it's not just needing a paint job.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, another element of the Challenge Fund that I really loved was that it is encouraging experimentation, and you can get rewarded for failure. Well documented, let everybody else learn from it failure. And so that was incredibly liberating to me. I'm not used to grants that work that way. So my question to all of you, so far, what has gone wrong and what are you doing to fix it? Mike's hand just fired up in the air.
Boy, have we got a story to tell.
Boy, have we screwed up.
Well, you know, if there's one thing I learned in the design thinking training was, you know, bias for action, just leap in. You can always iterate and, you know, adjust on the go. Well, so our project is the New Mexico Newsport. It's a publishing platform that the school never had before. So, you know, we're basically creating, you know, we couldn't even ask the question, what are we good at? Because we're saying, let's try to be good at this. So we're just jumping right in with both feet and then creating the partnerships kind of on the fly. What I did not anticipate and where we are right now is the tremendous flow of information going through me. And so I'm actually talking about something like 36 stories coming at me at any given time and sort of nobody to delegate to. We do have an editor, and she's great, but I'm sort of the first gatekeeper. She's the second gatekeeper. So I'm basically in kind of this retooling mode right now. Like, what kind of workload have I created for myself, and how is this going to be sustainable? And so I'm actually, because this is baked into the curriculum, I have to go into the curriculum and modify the curriculum sort of mid-course here. You know, it's a little embarrassing, but there it is. And what we're going to do is kind of create a little bit more of a sort of a cutoff point. You know, if some of these stories are not quite getting over the bar, that's okay. You get a grade, but we're not forcing everybody through the pipeline, which is you know, challenging.
Great. Who else?
Here, in one of these topics that we may fail yet on this, but haven't yet, introduced the persons on the spot for this one is my colleague Annie Hammock. Annie, she's our newsroom editor who's in the harvesting, has the harvesting responsibility for this. And we want to go well beyond those opinions from the citizens that are in the public flow of tweets and Facebook pages, because on any of these topics that we're exploring, the first one is bullying, there are ideas and discussions that are buried inside private email groups and so forth. And so we're trying to develop those strategies that will get us into those, or at least let the ideas from those emerge. And that's very much work in progress and important work to make sure we have those points reflected in the public affairs reporting.
Rebecca?
So I agree with Katie. That was, I think, one of the most brilliant parts of this project was that we didn't have to be afraid to try things and to iterate. So one of the things that we realized, part of the project was to get more people to participate in engagement through digital forms, through Public Insight Network queries, as we call them, questionnaires. And by filling out this questionnaire, you become part of this pool of sources for journalists across the country. And so to get more people involved in that, especially people who are underrepresented in this platform at the current moment, And so we tried a lot of different ways to get people to participate. We promoted on social media, we promoted with particular groups, we put forms, we put links to forms on different pages of the project that we were working with. What we found was it was hard to get people to click on the link to go to the form, and then even when we got people to go to the form, they weren't filling it out. And so we were trying all of these different ways to get people to the form, and in some we were being successful, but still not converting them into people actually sharing their perspective and their experience with us. And so what we're trying to do now is rethink how we're putting these forms together. So how are we asking questions? We're realizing that the way this has been done traditionally in the past has been an assumption that people are coming to this on a desktop. And so we were asking lots of long form questions and realizing that especially the ones we were promoting on social, people were probably seeing or often seeing on a phone and not wanting to fill out really long form questions. And so maybe we were turning people away that way. Also, every time you require someone to click and then click and then click again, you're losing people. And so now we're working to redesign the form to actually be embedded right in the article page, like on the rail or in the middle of the text, so that people don't have to go somewhere else to see it. And just streamlining the form so that it's much simpler and cleaner. And so what this allowed us to do was really think, moving forward, how do we kind of change this system to be more flexible and to work kind of as the way people, the way people are consuming news is changing.
Add something to that?
please.
Because we ran into a similar problem with forms where students were going in and people, when they heard that students were there to talk about mold, they let everything out. All of a sudden, the students were trying to fill out this form and they couldn't keep up with what they were saying. And so we've scrapped that form. It just got too long to fill out and so forth. So one of the solutions we're working with, and we're about to implement this, is the use of SMS for filling out forms. And we're going to start sending these forms out little by little. So you answer 3 simple questions, like how has mold affected the health of people in your family? And then a little bit of demographic information, are you in the Bronx or here or there? And then we can set it up so automatically in a week or 2, they get the next 3 questions, and then the next 3. And little by little, we build up more and more information in the database. We're working with, we try to work with one company, and they were going to take most of our grant to have this service. So we negotiated with someone else. It's a company called Ground Source, and it's created by a journalist, so it's very helpful.
So I'm going to point to the problem with our project, which is money. So these were micro grants, emphasis on the micro, and we used the money very wisely. And then I woke up quite literally the night that we submitted, 2 o'clock the following morning. I woke up and went, wait a minute, our hypothesis is we're going to build a common platform. We have 0 budget to build a common platform, and I have 0 time to do that myself. And so, as those of you who I have not returned emails to in the room know. So I freaked out a little bit, and I asked the department for money to hire someone to do this, because we have heavy emphasis on collaboration, but every single one of us knows that is a wonderful word, but unless you have someone leading the project, stuff doesn't get done. So I asked for money. The director of our department said no, we didn't have any money for it, but in a wonderful, wonderful, swift movement, he said, however, I believe so much in the potential of this thing to innovate in the department that I'm going to give you $1,000 of my soft money, my slush money, and I'm CCing 5 other faculty members who are involved in hopes that they will match my $1,000. And sure enough, they all did. It was a beautiful moment. So the way we fixed the problem was using the, I guess I would say, prestige of this grant to sort of hold people accountable for contributing to it. All right, do I have time for one more question for the panel, or would you like me to open it up? Let's open it up to the room. Okay, so. And then I have a wrap-up question if we run out of time. So I'm going to run around with this very unartfully. Okay? And please introduce yourselves when you ask your question.
Todd O'Neill from Middle Tennessee State. So it's regarding money. did you all leverage other community money or university money? Did you go after matching grants, or did you go apply for other grants to pile on top, or did community organizations bring money to you?
Well, because I have the microphone, and only because I have the microphone. I think you know, for us, we are relying a lot on in-kind donations, right? So the money gets transferred into a service of some sort that's beneficial to us, but also as a tax write-off perhaps for somebody else. But I agree with the prestige of the donors. And the minute we bring up the names of the donors, we get a lot of attention. So I'm getting a lot of support from sponsored research at our university with ideas for going forward. And this grant gets into like every email I write to somebody, and it gets responses. So it's about building, I think, momentum so that we can say, look, we were given this opportunity. We also spent our money wisely, and here's how. So that there's transparency and trying to do all the sorts of things that we know that future donors want to do, and that's to support something that's sustainable.
Who else wants to talk about the dough?
You got to take it away from me, Mike.
Well, first of all, I would say no, I did not want to encumber the grant request with some kind of deliberate match, or some kind of hinge that could sort of jeopardize it if I couldn't deliver on the other half of it. So in our situation, let's just see if we can land that grant, and then let's see what we can leverage. And like you, Ted, now we've got some prestige factor. Now I've got some momentum. I've had meetings with our foundation people. We've set up a fund where alumni, anybody can contribute to the project. But we are heavily leaning now into what about year 2? Can we create a vision for year 2 through 5? That kind of thing. So we're using it now as a fundraising leverage opportunity.
I would emphasize that particularly alumni fundraising, because when we got the grant, one of the things we said was, we don't want to do this once. We want to test it once, figure out how to make it work, and then find a way to sustain it. And I think, I'm hoping that it will be successful enough that we can raise money around it. That it will be something that an alum would say, hey, they really are moving forward. That would be our state motto, forward. So it's something that we would try to do our own development on as well. Although if the funders would like to give us more money, that's great too.
Hi, my name is Louise Leaf. I'm with the Science and the Media Initiative, and I think what you're doing is fantastic. So I had a couple of questions. First, to what extent I realize that it's all very new and you're thinking it up as you go along, but to what extent is what you're doing being adopted as newsroom practice, and to what extent is it a one-off? And then for Sandeep, I thought the SMS way of getting people to fill out forms is really difficult all the time. What has been the response rate for the SMS approach? So 2 questions.
Regarding newsroom practice with us, we want to invent some ways that could be transported into other newsrooms to expand this, and we'll see how that goes. That's phase 2.
It's the same for us. Phase 2 is working into advanced reporting classes and starting to make the resources available to the classes now as we develop them. But it is a phase 2. You got to get the things going. And we haven't been able to achieve failure yet, but.
Yeah, thanks. We're in the same situation. The partnerships are just starting in the newsroom, so we don't have that yet. But in terms of the SMS, that's the next step. We haven't done that yet, but we've been looking at that particular community and how they are willing to communicate as well. They're very connected, not necessarily to smartphones, but to lower end phones, and they text heavily. So we've done some research on that, and we're hoping that it will work as a way of connecting. We've spoken to people, other CUNY faculty, someone who's down, Jesse Hardman, who's down in New Orleans, working on a project with post-Katrina, what the situation is there, and he's used text messaging pretty successfully. The idea is we don't want to be known as spammers. We want to collect information, but we want to make sure that we give them back information that they can then use. And if we are able to do that quickly, not just collecting information and then taking a long time to analyze it, but start giving things back to highlight ways that other people are living, ways that people are coping with it, we're hoping that the response rate might be higher as well.
All right, and up here?
Hi, I'm Amy Eisman from American University. Congratulations to all of you for quite extraordinary work. It's very humbling to sit here. Sandeep, I have a question for you, because for all of us, until the entire higher education system is completely reformed, we do have semesters, and so your students are doing the project. You started to talk about how you are building a database of some of the information and the data they're taking in, but how are we thinking long-term about, if you're taking on such an important and wonderful project as you are about mold, what do you do with the next class and the next class? Where is your thinking on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in many ways, this semester is actually the second phase. Last year, when we were waiting to hear whether we would get the grant or not, I just thought the topic was so important that the experimental nature of the course is going to draw more people in. So we just launched a course at CUNY called the Video Lab course, which is experimental in terms of how you can use video for telling stories beyond, the 3-minute video on the web. And I see this very much as the engagement lab course. And I think we can get students interested, especially if, again, I keep coming back to this, if we're able to make NYCHA and others take action, the action on the issue, try to fix things. Students are very keen on that, like actually seeing their work produce change rather than just being sent out on social media and God knows what happens, people favorite it and so forth, but is there real change involved? And I'm hoping that that'll lead to that next semester as well.
Can I just also respond to because the pedagogical and curricular components of this grant are really what attracted me to it the most, and so your questions of like, how do we not just create sustainable business models, but how do we create this sustainably in terms of our curriculum, which can take a long time to change some things. One of the great things about being a professor, one of the worst things, is everybody's always 18 years old, right? And so you have these people who are coming through and they're moving from introductory classes to moderate to advanced, and then they leave. Hopefully they come back or they still have some ties. And so we started this full-fledged in the summer. And we're hoping that this spring also adds, some content, but also some motivation throughout the journalism school, so that students, when they enter into the classrooms that are focused on sea level rise or focused on investigative journalism or whatever it might be, they've already been, somewhat primed coming into the space. Because I think, and I've only been doing this for a very short time, but students, I think, are used to, each class kind of, there might be some collaboration between classes, but they seem to be their own entities, and you sometimes do 2 or 3 stories in a class. And so my students are looking at me kind of crazy, because they're like, you mean we're only going to do 1 story in 16 weeks? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's built upon what happened last semester or what happened previous to that semester, and you're doing iteration of iteration of iteration, so that when you're leaving 16 weeks later, you're not coming out with 4 different stories, you're coming out with 1 excellent story that our local PBS station could air or something. So it's really a revamping, I think, of not just curriculum on paper, but and of within professors, but also kind of retraining students to what the classroom might be. Does that make sense?
And
this is why I don't get the microphone, Katie.
That was actually remarkably concise, Ted. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerry Hester. I'm at the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism. I'm Sandeep's partner in crime on the MOLD project. And as he said, we're trying different ways, low tech and high tech, to reach members of the community. And for us, it's coming from our background, it's been almost like an act of restraint in some ways. Instead of just jumping in, we're trying to be deliberate about how we're going to do this. In going with what, in terms of what we're calling social journalism, the first act is to really listen to people. So, we're really struggling not to reinvent the wheel and kind of find people where they are already. And I'm curious, David and Brant and anyone else who wants to weigh in, what are some of the methods that you've used to find where people are already communicating and then finding ways to get in on that conversation?
This is going to sound pretty basic. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do this project is it's journalism. And I think sometimes we think that there's an algorithm that's going to take care of everything. So one of the things we plan to do with this is identify who's really talking, and also people that don't have the most followers or whatever. And then we're going to actually make human contact. A really novel idea, I know, but that's how we're planning to do it, and to reach out and to see and to actually, what we're going to do is use what we've got to find those people and then go see them. The same that you're getting out into the housing projects and so forth. So I think that's really important. What we're going to get out of this is a lot of knowledge that we didn't have. We're living in a community quite often finds out something's happening because BuzzFeed picked it up. Okay, we have some outrageous things that happen, and then that we find out through there. We want to get ahead of that and actually know what's going on in the community and identify important things through human contact after using the data.
Our engagement phase is really coming later. Right now we're doing mobile reporting and be moving toward putting a website together that will be then trying to get out there to engage the community. So my early answer is that we're trying to get a handle on who the network might be. I mean, my biggest fear is that there will not in the end be a large network, but we're looking right now at what Oklahoma Watch, our partner, the sourcing they've used on stories, because they've done coverage of some dimensions of poverty already, and so I'm trying to anticipate what some of the network may be, but we're really early in that process.
One of the things I just want to say about our project, and I'll echo what Brant said, one of the wonderful things about these projects is it's actually going to get the students out into the community. And I had a student once say that one of the most difficult things for him was to figure out how to pick up a phone and actually speak to a person, because they're so used to doing everything by email and other kinds of like non-personal contact. So this not only builds that community relationship where students have to get out there and talk to real people, but I think it actually shows the students that they can build their own databases. They can find their own data. They don't have to rely on government to tell them what air quality is in certain areas. Maybe they use that as a benchmark, but this I think empowers them to realize they can actually go out and collect some of this information for themselves and empower the community with it.
Hi, Michelle Ferrier, Scripps College of Communications at Ohio University. And I have two structural questions that really deal with the sustainability issue. One, has any of your institutions looked at, in order to make this sustainable and balance the workload, buyouts for professors to be able to manage this process as you're moving forward, or some other kinds of in-kind supports to be able to make that happen? And then how that relationship building, which is a lot of the work that you're doing, is valued in your P&T processes. And I know you're at the beginning of this, but I'd like to understand a little bit of that. And then given the sustainability, if you're looking at this in one course, et cetera, where you're experimenting with this, how do you keep that sustainability over the summer or in other places where that course might not be offered if it's a course that's only offered once a year?
I'll just say on the promotion and tenure part, since I also wear associate dean hat, and we haven't bought out anyone, by the way. They're doing it within their regular course load, so I'm to blame for that, I guess. But it's a challenge with promotion and tenure, because the reality is that we encourage collaboration, but we want people to be able to show their, with their research and their teaching, that they've made a major central contribution. So I think that's something. I know we can't all go down the row on this, but I think that that's something that going forward, that a lot of universities are going to have to wrestle with on how we make this something that's legitimate when it comes to tenure, because we're doing this is building toward very important research, but it may not be the research in the traditional sense, but we've got to figure out ways to make that part of our criteria.
I'll just say really quickly, what we're building is, to me, a resource bank and also methodologies that can be used in any class. I think anybody who rests a project on one course is probably ill-fated to just have it, narrow into one place. I think we want to spread this knowledge throughout the courses and have it be something available to everyone to use and to contribute to as they go along.
Let's see, at our place, our planning criterion also includes how to sustain it, both in terms of our course structure. That's the easy part. But if we're undertaking this project in a commercial newsroom, how do you devise that project so that it could be transported to other newsrooms in terms of a light workload and that kind of thing? And so that's just part of the project definition.
My project may be a little bit different than some of the other ones, but I have a lot of experience with experiential learning projects. And one thing I've learned is because of the limitations of the semester is you have to develop your expectations of deliverables around the semester schedule. So you create something that you think you can do in the course of a semester, and then you break that down into the pieces that will help you attain that. And then you have another class that's coming, the next semester, and you break that down into the pieces that you need to keep moving the idea forward. It is a little bit unreasonable to think about continuing something over the summer when there aren't enough students around to do it. If you have to switch your class responsibilities to something else. But I think as we work through this and it becomes an important part of our curriculum, that will work itself into the curriculum naturally. But we still have to plan it. It's a little, I'm going to be talking about Agile in the classroom tomorrow on a panel, and it's doing small iterations of something over time, and that works perfectly within a semester system. So even though you don't have the continuity of students throughout the year, there are ways to structure the project in these small sort of project increments that allow you to keep it going.
Just one more thing very quickly. One of the things we're hoping to do, and I do have to talk to our dean about it, is to have summer interns for this project. The school requires everyone to be in a full-time internship over the summer, and this would be a great way to have a mold fellow or something like that, and have them working on this project, a couple of them. But yes, you do
I would
have
not
to
want that on my business card. I am the moldy fellow.
Well, we're known as the